You ever stop and think about what a dollar was really worth to your parents or your grandparents? I mean, it's just a piece of paper, a coin, but its story, well, that's the story of America. It's a total roller coaster of big booms, devastating busts, and just unbelievable change. All right, let's get into it.
So, let's rewind the clock to the roaring 20s. President Calvin Coolidge, he just nailed the feeling of the era with this quote. After the Great War, America was absolutely buzzing. It was all about expansion, big factories, big money. The whole country just felt like it couldn't be stopped.
But, that dream of unending prosperity, it hit a wall, and it hit it hard. I mean, just look at this contrast. In 1929, everyone's talking about how great things are. But fast forward to 1938, and even after years of trying to fix things, the Great Depression still has its grip on the country. 10 million people are still out of work. Talk about whiplash. It really defined a whole generation.
Okay, so to really understand this whole story, we've got to ground it in the one number that matters to pretty much everybody, the paycheck. What were people actually taking home through all this chaos and all this success?
So, right at the peak of the Roaring Twenties, your average factory worker was making less than $1,500 a year. But here's the really wild part. Even with the economy supposedly booming, one estimate says that half the population was still living in poverty. So all that prosperity, it definitely wasn't reaching everybody.
And then, the crash. To deal with the massive unemployment, President Roosevelt's New Deal started programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC. It put 250,000 young guys to work for just $1 a day. Now that's not much, but when the economy had hit absolute rock bottom, it was a lifeline. Now, let's jump forward a generation into the post-war years. The whole picture, it just completely changes. By the early 1960s, a factory worker could pull in over $100 a week. That's more in a week than their parents might have made in a whole month back in the 20s. You can really see the beginnings of a strong middle class here. More jobs, better pay, a different world.
So, okay, people had more money in their pockets, but what could they actually buy with it? Come on, let's go shopping through the decades.
Oh, this is great. I love this ad from the 1930s because it shows you the power of money in such a simple way. For one single penny, you could listen to your radio for over 3 hours. A penny! It just goes to show you that even the smallest coins had real, actual value back then. All right, let's fill up that shopping cart. We're in New York City, 1935. A quart of milk is going to set you back 13 cents. A pound of pork chops, 36 cents. And look at this, a whole pound of potatoes for a little over 2 cents. You can really start to imagine how a family had to budget everything, right down to the penny. By the 1960s, though, grocery shopping itself was changing. You have these new supermarkets, like Food Fair, and they weren't just selling necessities anymore. They were selling this idea of quality, of choice, of abundance. They were marketing to a brand new middle class that could finally afford to think beyond just the basics. And what about clothes? In the late 30s, a man could get a brand new all-wool suit for less than $14. A woman's dress? Under $2. Now, those prices sound absolutely insane to us today, but you just have to remember it was all relative to what people were earning. Okay, so we've covered the daily stuff, but the value of $1 also tells a much bigger story about our biggest dreams. Things like owning a home, buying a car, and getting your hands on the latest technology. I love this. In 1936, you could buy a build-it-yourself house kit for under $500. It came with pretty much everything you needed. This made the dream of owning a home a real possibility for people, in a way that's kind of hard for us to even wrap our heads around today. Okay, now hang on to that number, because let's jump ahead to 1960. In a wealthy suburb like Greenwich, Connecticut, the median home value was almost $33,000. That is an incredible leap, and it just shows you the explosion of wealth in the suburbs and how the home became the absolute center of the American dream.
And then there was the car. Man, the automobile totally changed America. Production just exploded in the 1920s, and prices started to come down. The car wasn't just a way to get from A to B, it was freedom. It created the idea of a weekend trip, it created motels, it created a whole new American landscape.
And hey, it wasn't just about homes and cars. Technology was moving at a crazy pace. This slide shows it perfectly. On the left, you've got this clunky, hand-cranked office machine from the 30s that cost $39. Then on the right, from the 50s, this slick, automatic dictation machine.
The office was going modern, and so were the tools people used to do business. Okay, get ready for this number. In 1961, one of the most powerful computers in the entire world, an IBM 7090, cost $3 million. $3 million. That unbelievable price tag for what was, at the time, unimaginable computing power, that's the very beginning of the digital age we're all living in. Let's look at a few other big-ticket prices. In 1938, you could fly from LA to New York for about $150. A 3-minute phone call overseas a year later, over $11. And then you have these once-in-a-lifetime deals. In 1961, Ray Kroc bought the name McDonald's for $2.7 million. Yeah, I think we can all agree that was a pretty solid investment. So, we've looked at salaries, groceries, houses, cars, computers. We've thrown a lot of numbers at you. But what does it all really mean? Let's try to put it all in context and figure out what a dollar was truly worth. This timeline kind of helps put our whole journey into perspective, right? You see the wild boom of the 20s, the awful bust of the 30s, and then that incredible growth after the war. But the roller coaster didn't stop there. The 70s brought this weird thing called stagflation, where the economy was stuck, but prices were still going way up. And then, of course, more recent recessions. All of it constantly changed what a dollar could do. So here it is, the big takeaway. A single dollar from 1929 could buy what would have cost you more than $13 in 2012. Now, get this. Because of deflation during the Great Depression, which means prices actually went down, a dollar from 1933 was even more powerful. It was worth over 17 books in 2012 money. But then, look at 1979. Inflation wiped out over 13% of a dollar's value in just 1 year. The value of our money is just never stable. From the price of a single potato to the cost of a supercomputer, the dollar's changing value tells the American story, our history of big ideas, tough struggles, and incredible growth. It's a really powerful way to look at our past. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What story will the money in our pockets tell a generation from now?